Okay, so let's talk about David Goggins. The man seems to defy what's humanly possible, right? But we're not just here for the hype. We're going to dig deeper and actually break down his mindset through the lens of cognitive science. We're looking for the system behind the savage.
You hear a quote like that, and it just sounds superhuman. But what if it isn't magic? What if it's a mental system that we can actually understand? A specific psychological framework he's using to push way past what seems impossible.
All right, so Section 1, the unstoppable David Goggins, an enigma of human endurance. I mean, we've all seen the clips, right? The retired Navy SEAL, this ultra-endurance athlete who runs on broken bones and honestly seems to get stronger from suffering.
Which leads to the big question everyone asks. How on earth is this possible? It's so easy to just write him off and say, oh, he's just tough. But according to a recent academic study of his book, Can't Hurt Me, there's a fascinating psychological key to all this.
And the secret, it isn't just about being tough. It's about a very deliberate mental split, a technique that cognitive linguists call the subject-self bifurcation. Now, that's a mouthful, I know. But this concept is the psychological engine that drives the whole Goggins machine.
So what in the world is subject-self bifurcation? Well, basically, it's a framework where Goggins mentally splits himself into two completely separate parts. And this isn't just some abstract idea, okay? It's a functional, real-world tool he uses to manage insane levels of pain and to keep going when literally everyone else would have quit.
Think about it like this. You've got the subject. That's the director, the commander, the part of him that's just giving orders and focused on the mission. And then you have the self. That's the part that feels everything, the body, the emotions, the part of you that is screaming, I want to quit. Goggins lives in that conversation between the two.
So how does this actually work in the real world? Well, the first method is what the research calls the social self. This is where the subject, that commander part of his brain, takes on a familiar social role, like a coach or a drill sergeant, to manage the part that wants to give up.
So his inner commander might act like a mentor coaching a student, or a driver just forcing the passenger to keep moving, or even a parent telling a kid to get it together. It's this constant, and let's be honest, often brutal internal conversation that's all designed to keep that weaker self in check.
And get this, it's not just a voice in his head, he makes it real. And that's where his famous accountability mirror comes in. It's a physical thing he does where the director, the subject, literally gets face to face with the weaker self and holds it accountable. No excuses.
I mean, listen to his own words here. You can practically hear the two different voices, can't you? There's the disgusted subject, the advisor, just lecturing the failing self in the mirror. That is the inner drill sergeant in action, forcing the self to face the cold, hard truth.
But that inner dialogue isn't always a conversation. Sometimes it gets way more brutal than that. And this brings us to the second framework he uses, the physical object self. And this one is about total domination, not just a little guidance.
In this mode, the mind isn't a person to be coached. It's a thing. It's a tool. Period. It's like a piece of steel that needs to be forged into a weapon. The subject becomes the warrior, and the self, with all its pain and all its weakness, that's just the tool in his hand.
This really lays out the whole mental toolkit perfectly. You see, on one side there's the social self stuff we just talked about, the subject acting like a mentor or a driver. But then you look to the other side, to the physical object self, and whoa, it is a completely different game. Here, the subject is an operator and the self is just an object, a tool, a weapon, something to be hardened and used. It's a total shift from guidance to just pure detached control.
And this way of thinking leads to these incredibly powerful strategies, like building a calloused mind by intentionally putting himself through discomfort, or his famous idea of taking souls, which isn't really about his opponent. It's an internal game to absolutely dominate his own weakness. It's about winning the war inside his head first.
So, what's the ultimate point of all this intense internal battle? It's not just about being tough for the sake of being tough. No, it's about unlocking what Goggins believes is this huge, untapped potential that's hiding inside every single one of us.
And it really all comes down to this one number. This single figure is pretty much the foundation of his entire philosophy.
You've probably heard of this one, the 40% rule. He argues that when your mind is screaming at you that you're done, that you're exhausted, that you can't possibly go any further, you're actually only at about 40% of your real capability. That feeling of being done is just a lie your mind tells you to protect itself.
And this is where that whole divided self system really comes together. The primary job of the subject, that inner commander, is to recognize the mind's built-in governor. You know, that safety mechanism in the self that's designed to make you quit early? That governor wants you to be comfortable, but Goggins sees it as your single biggest limitation.
So the big takeaway from all this is a question. The Goggins mindset isn't magic. It's a trainable system. And it leaves us all with one powerful, kind of scary idea to think about. What if that voice telling you to quit, which you perceive as your absolute limit, is really just the starting line?